Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. Do you recall that I have been asking the public to find first-hand witnesses of the Manchester Arena atrocity so I can speak to them? Do you also recall me recently saying this? Rich Planet does not take its lead from mainstream reporting. In fact, I could give you a list as long as my arm of the things that have appeared in mainstream media that I believe were put there as a direct result of the exposés that have been highlighted by Rich Planet. Now, this article is an example of the kind of thing I was talking about. Beware of social media during terror events, NHS guidelines warn. NHS staff and terror attack victims and their families have been warned about the risks of using social media in new guidelines issued by NHS England. The guide cautions that internet trolls may subject victims to vile and upsetting abuse, as was seen after the Manchester and London terror attacks. It also warns people to be wary of journalists seeking accounts of events. The process of retelling a story can make people relive the worst parts of horrific events, it warns. People may say more than they intend to when vulnerable, upset or angry, it adds. The NHS England guide also issues specific advice to younger people, cautioning people will use your information for their own ends, and when you're in the heat of the moment, you may say more than you intend to or later regret. The guide warns NHS staff against accidentally revealing something about the incident which is not already in the public domain. It says, often in terror incidents, the receiving hospitals are not named in the media straight away, so don't post that you've had a busy shift dealing with victims, as this will confirm something which isn't already known. Dear oh dear, what are they really worried about? It seems to me they are worried about the truth. Do you think these measures are about being altruistic and protecting victims? Bullshit. They are worried about independent people investigating these events because the mainstream media, who are censored by the intelligence agencies, never report accurately what happened. Staying on the theme of terrorism, I recently covered the Westminster Bridge attack. And you may remember that somebody placed a piece of plywood against the railings in front of the perpetrator's car. Here is an image of the car immediately after the crash. We see no piece of plywood. And here, a little later, we see the plywood in place. So who put it there? Nick Colostrom suggested this might have been deliberately put there to hide something, perhaps an undamaged railing. Now, I was recently contacted by a Rich Planet viewer who sent me some camera phone video footage of the person with the plywood. Here it is. Did you catch that? Here it is again, zoomed in and slowed down. It appears that the person who put the plywood in front of the vehicle is wearing a mask. An anonymous mask or a Guy Fawkes mask. What the hell is that about? Now then, just put yourself in the shoes of someone on that bridge. You've just seen a car mow down a whole load of people and then crash into the railings. A terrorist gets out with knives and runs off down the street. There are bodies all over the place. Some of them are dead. So what are you going to do? Are you going to help some of the victims? Are you going to warn people walking past that there's been a terrorist attack? No, of course not. You're going to find a piece of plywood. That's what you're going to do. You're going to find a piece of plywood, right? And then what you're going to do, you're going to get your anonymous mask, right? What on earth was this person doing? Was he part of the operation? Answers on a postcard to Rich Planet TV, P.O. Box, Bob Lazar. Now then, Stephen Hawking has been in the news again, Hooray! The 75-year-old Stephen Hawking. That's Stephen Hawking, who in 1963 was given 2 years to live. So he's only exceeded this prognosis by 52 years. If you want more on what I'm talking about, please follow this link. I suspect that Hawking died over 10 years ago and an impersonator is currently filling his wheelchair. I would guess that if he did die, it was somewhere between 1995 and 2006, but I'm open to debate on that part of it. Now, this is what Hawking recently said for an upcoming TV show. Should I say, this is what the person pretending to be Stephen Hawking said. Or maybe I should just say, this is what the person who programmed Stephen Hawking's voice box said. Now, I've got my own voice box here for added realism. Note here, I am not impersonating Stephen Hawking's. Therefore, I am not ridiculing him. I am impersonating an electronic box that you have no proof is being operated by the mind of the real Stephen Hawking. So don't come at me with that political correctness bullshit. This is what he said. I am convinced that humans need to leave Earth and make a new home on another planet. For humans to survive, I believe we must have the preparations in place within 100 years. It could be an asteroid hitting the Earth. It could be a new virus, climate change, nuclear war, or artificial intelligence gone rogue. That's what he said. Now, these are not the words of a scientist. I think everyone can agree on that. These are the words of a fearmonger. A fearmonger who isn't presenting any evidence of his ridiculous claims. The sooner this charlatan, whoever it is universally exposed, the better. If we do move to another planet, please, can Stephen Hawking be put first in the queue? I'll be happy to ignite the rocket and eject him, or whoever is impersonating him, into orbit around the sun. On today's show, I speak with Neil Sanders about the concept of fake news, the underhand manipulation of the internet and social media, and some of the dark forces behind Donald Trump and Brexit. On this programme, you might say we are engaged in a war. Not a war of ballistics, but a war of linguistics, a war of information. Language is a key part of the information war, and using certain buzzwords to discredit the other side is a common weapon. The word conspiracy theorist is one such word, and a new word on the block is fake news. I've spoken about this concept in a previous show, and here to analyse it further and try and answer what is really going on with it is researcher Neil Sanders. Welcome back, Neil.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Okay, we've all heard this word, fake news, and we're going to start off. There are different types of fake news.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, obviously the term fake news has become somewhat weaponised, which we'll come on to, but there are a number of things that could constitute fake news. You could have intentionally fake news, like either people putting out lies within the media to smear somebody, or propaganda, say from a political party or from a government, somebody trying to gain influence to influence, say, foreign policy or domestic policy or anything like that. And then you get this problem as well within modern journalism, which is basically to do with the fact that we have rolling news and we have social media, and basically we're in a sort of 24-hour cycle that you have to fill. You get two things. You get one which is called journalism and one which is called public relations. Now, people say, why are the Kardashians in every single paper? I don't want to see this. Why are they there? I'll tell you exactly why they're there. Because one of the main sources of mainstream news is not to send roving reporters out into the field, because frankly that's quite expensive. What they'll do is they'll go to PR companies, and PR companies will manufacture a story for them. Every time you see a celebrity doing a stretching exercise in a leotard in the park, It's a PR coup. It's selling a product. There's numerous times that you'll see advertisements for new wonder drug or something like that, and actually it's a sales pitch. The concept of journalism comes from the fact that basically, again, because of financial constraints, you won't have a lot of roving reporters out there. You'll have one reporter that's basically connected to a news wire like Reuters or AP or something like that. They'll be on the ground and they will decide what is happening in this story. They'll report it and they need to get it off as quickly as possible. They'll put this on the wire and then this will get sent around the world.
So so the first category of fake news is intentionally fake news, propaganda, and you're including this journalism in that, which is just kind of titillating nonsense.
Journalism is basically they'll take one party line that's come from one person who's on the scene and then just repeat that. They won't check the facts. They won't check who it is that's actually come from it. They'll just say, look, this is an official news source on the ground, and this is how lies can get repeated. So because if that particular reporter has made an error on the actual site, that gets repeated, and it will be days and days and days and days before anybody points out, hang on, that's not what's actually happened. Right. Whether, again, this is done on purpose sometimes or just by mistake is for debate. There is obviously, mistakes, badly researched articles from a dubious source. And I think this is particularly a problem with social media and the internet, because quite a lot of the time, as we've discussed before, it's a very strange sort of arena, social media, in as much as you've got an audience. You're basically trying to play to an audience to an extent, and to come out to this audience and go, yeah, by the way, all that stuff that I've been telling you, it was wrong because the source was wrong. I think that's quite difficult, and so you tend to get a lot of people would just basically continue with the same story, regardless of the fact that it might be poorly researched, in order to save face, so to speak.
All right, so the next category, so you've covered sensationalised.
Well, sensationalised is a slightly different one. It's the same principle, but what they would do with that is they'll put a quote like, Queen revealed to be a lizard, and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. And you read the story, and the story says, according to sources on the internet, the Queen has revealed herself to be a lizard. So the story doesn't actually say what the headline says. The headline is the sales for it. And they can use very, very, very sort of like manipulative language to not, if you read the story, they've not actually said that. They've said that somebody else has said that. Right. And this is projected. A hyper accentuated version of that is something that we see an awful lot, which is clickbait, which is essentially either made up stories or headlines that purposefully don't match the content of the story.
This would be purely the internet clickbait. It's trying to get you to click on something.
Yes and no. I mean, the same principle works for newspapers. If you see a sensational headline, you might pick the newspaper up off the stand or the magazine or whatever.
So a particular headline, I want that newspaper, you would also class that as clickbait?
Kind of. The point is that basically it's just a trap to get people to either buy that or that medium, or to go on that particular website, because a lot of sites get advertising revenue where the more clicks on the site, the more money they will make. So you'll get, there's a whole series of stupid, like Neon Nettle, for example, is one. It's a made-up, they just make up stories. You just completely pull them out of whole cloth, but they sound sensationalist and interesting. Right. So basically, people will go onto it and they'll keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, and it's completely unsourced. In fact, it's not even completely unsourced. They've made it up. They've just made it up, and there's an awful lot of that on the internet.
Now, what about J-Trig and information which is intentionally planted to discredit either certain stories or people? Are they included in what you've just covered?
They can be, yeah. I mean, we'll come on to that. We'll come on to J-Trig later, because J-Trig is a very specific type of propaganda program that utilises all of these types of things. It utilises fake stories, fake gurus, fake leaders, and people to sort of to go behind. I think the important point, and something that people tend to sort of gloss over a lot of the time, is that all of these things, intentionally fake, badly researched, clickbait, sensationalism and stuff like that, they're prevalent in the mainstream media. We know that. We know the mainstream media has got, they lie, okay? But they're also very, very prevalent in the alternative media. And I think this is something that basically people don't, because I think the internet is still an emergent sort of like technology. I think a lot of people think it's international waters, and that basically it's a safe arena, and it's an arena where it's underground, it's away from the mainstream, and so you can source real information. And I don't think that's true. I don't think a lot of people realise that basically everything you do on the internet, you might as well write on a piece of paper and hand into your local police station, because every single thing you do is monitored by somebody. Like every site that you go on, every opinion, to very scary degrees, which we will come on to later. But absolutely, I mean, the influencing of opinion is very important. The Pentagon, for example, there's something that they did. They've got over 150 different personnel that appear on news media, say Fox News or whatever. Now, ostensibly, these people are supposed to be completely impartial. They're just somebody who's an expert on the situation that will be able to give a military bearing on whatever is happening in the world politics or whatever. What you actually see is that basically this is a direct line from the Pentagon spinning propaganda. They're there as an agent of psychological operations in order to spin it favourably or to disguise information that they don't want to be released. I mean, the mainstream media, we know the mainstream media has got a lot of problems. We could list a dozen stories. Belgian babies being amputated during the First World War, Kuwaiti incubators, 45 minutes, weapons of mass destruction, al-Zarqawi linked to al-Qaeda in Iraq. None of these are true. Bin Laden's underground cavern, all the stuff that came from Curveball. We know that the media is inclined to spit out rubbish. And what's very strange is it's becoming quite a lot. A lot of this is becoming very, very influential on public life. For example, the top 20 provably fake stories during the recent US election were shared far, far more than the top 20 provably true stories. And it could be said that basically fake stories were actually more prevalent in decision making than real stories. And what's really weird is if you look at a lot of these supposed clickbait articles and stuff like that, fake news, whatever you want to call it, there's an agenda behind it. Somebody's sending these out. They're using things called AI bots, which is basically it's like spamming entire sort of areas. And they're doing it, somebody set up this technology, which is not easy to set up, and they're doing it in order to specifically spread this information in specific areas. There may be a reason for that, which we'll come on to later. But, I mean, just an example of that, there's this town in Macedonia called Veles, right, okay? And it's known locally as Trump Vale, because during the election, basically, there was 7 businesses set up there, and all they were doing, they were hiring hundreds and hundreds of local people, particularly like students and such like that. And all that they were doing was getting them to write fake anti-Clinton, pro-Trump stuff. Right. Like all these stories, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fake stories about Clinton and fake stories about Trump, but being positively spun to Trump and then sent out via these AI bots all over the world. Now, what's really strange about this is that these companies, it's not entirely clear who's behind them, and they claim to have absolutely no political affiliation, which seems very, very, very strange. They definitely had business connections that showed that money from advertising revenue was making its way back to the US. That's not illegal. It's desperately underhanded and dishonest, but it's not actually illegal. And there was again, there was a lot of fake anti-Trump stuff as well. It's just that basically we can actually prove that this one particular village was set up specifically for that.
Just as a side comment, I mentioned Michael Desarian, a comment on how much effort has to be put in when you're watching television. It requires no effort.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to move. All you have to do is have your eyes open and be conscious. It takes no effort. Maybe click the remote control. And the internet really is like that now, isn't it?
Oh, it's more so.
And the mouse has become what the remote control used to be. and it takes no effort to sit there browsing. It's just very similar to watching
and there's
TV.
far more messages. You're multi-screening when you're on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, just take a Facebook page. There's about 27 different pieces of information that are all going on. That's all being absorbed. You might not subconsciously take it in, but you see the same headline again and again and again and again. Repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. You put people into a scenario whereby basically they don't know what is true and don't know what's not true and can't discern it, and people start to become more malleable and accepting of anything and going more towards, say, party lines or political bias or something like that, to give themselves more psychological comfort than to actually find the truth.
Right.
And this is really, really sort of dangerous. And like, regarding the concept of fake news, I personally think that Trump is a master of fake news, and that is not a compliment by any stretch of the imagination. If someone in the third world was using the tactics that Trump is using at press conferences, everyone would go, oh, well, he's a dictator. Okay, fair enough. He's using control of the media. Now, let me explain, because this is connected. This is going to be a running theme that's going through this thing. This is connected to two people, which is Steve Bannon and Robert Mercer, and also, to a lesser degree, the multimillionaire William Regnery II. They're going to be coming up quite a lot in this, basically. Mercer is the main financier of the Trump campaign. We will come back to this in more detail. He's also the owner of Breitbart, which is the news outlet that Steve Bannon was the editor-in-chief, and he's now gone back to after resigning as aide to Trump. They also finance Nigel Farage. Nigel, £350 million a week for the NHS Farage. He's sponsored by Robert Mercer. So there's a whole sort of like a cavalcade of these quite right-wing people that are connected through organisations like Goldman Sachs, which Bannon used to work for. Nigel Farage is an ex-broker. He's not a man of the people by any stretch of the imagination. And basically, there's a whole sort of series of right-wing media nodes that are sponsored by Mercer and William Regnery through things like the MPI and various other things. And they basically spit out this particular line of propaganda, essentially. Now, just to give you an idea, right? This is a quote about Mercer, and then I'll explain the point. Some see Mercer as emblematic of a major shift in American politics has occurred since 2010, when the Supreme Court made a controversial ruling in Citizens versus Federal Election Commission. That ruling and several subsequent ones removed virtually all limits on how much money corporations and non-profit groups can spend on federal elections and how much individuals can give to the political action committees. Since then, power has tilted away from the two main political parties and towards a tiny group of mega-rich donors. Private money has long played a big role in American elections. When there were limits on how much a single donor could give, however, it was much harder for an individual to have a decisive impact. Now, a single billionaire can write an 8-figure check and not just put their thumb but their whole hand on the scale, and we often have no idea who they are. Suddenly a random billionaire can change politics and public policy and sweep everything else off the table, even if they don't speak publicly and there's no public awareness of their views. Just to give you an idea of the sort of person that Robert Mercer is.
So when did the rules change?
2010.
Right.
Okay, just to give you the sort of person that Robert Mercer is. Robert Mercer has argued that the Civil Rights Act in 1964 was a mistake. Okay, he wants to deport all black people, and he feels that basically they were better off when they were slaves. Now, obviously, most historians will tell you that this is true. He also is of the opinion that there's no white racism. There's no racism from white people to black people in America. And bizarrely, he includes white supremacists, the KKK, and racist organisations. So the guy's obviously a bit of a lunatic. The point of the fake news and how Trump used it very much like a dictator. During the election, those fake news stories that we're talking about, Hillary Clinton's got the cannibal disease, Hillary Clinton's got a brain tumour, Hillary Clinton's dying of X, Y, and Z, she's got Parkinson's disease, all of those. Where did they come from? They came from all the right-wing outlets that Mercer sponsors, Breitbart, Drudge Report, InfoWars, all of these that he's basically inputted money into and influence over the past few years. So the term fake news was actually appropriated before the election. The second that Trump gets into office, anything that goes against the party line, what Trump says, the line of the official White House, is fake news. And just like that, half the alternative media have decided that the official White House line is true, and that the mainstream media is not true. I appreciate that the mainstream media is full of crap, but let's look at the things that have been exposed by them: the My Lai massacre, Jimmy Savile, the expense scandal. You know, there's lots and lots of things. That the broader spectrum of media, the more room you have for Seymour Hersh's and Carl Bernstein's and stuff like that. What Trump is doing with this concept of weaponized fake news is he's reduced it to one single line of news, which is essentially Trump or Trump-associated outlets like Breitbart. And that is incredibly clever, but incredibly troubling. Because, as I say, if this was happening anywhere else in the world, people would go, that's quite a dodgy tactic. That's the tactic that a dictator would use.
So you think there's some very wealthy people who are going to somehow, what are they going to gain by supporting him? They're going to gain more wealth, you think?
I think they've used him as a conduit for what they want. There's people like William Reginald II and Robert Mercer, and basically what they both believe is that they want a white ethno-state in America. I mean, certainly William Reginald wants that. Robert Mercer claims not to be a white supremacist, but everyone that's worked for him claims that he is a white supremacist, and he comes out with statements like the Civil Rights Act should never have happened. So I think what essentially they've done is they've tried to sort of build a node of what could be considered alternative media, which is actually alt-right media, portraying itself as alternative media. And all it really does is give propaganda that props up Trump, because they've presented him as a man of the people and you know, the saviour. He's going to go against, you know, the establishment. They took the fact that people were rightly annoyed and disenfranchised by the elites, by the mainstream, and they basically utilised this figure as a way to actually to get in. What's strange about it is he still talks to CNN. He still talks to the failing New York Times. And now we know the CIA have got a vested interest in the media. Like, I don't buy all this backwards and forwards. I think it's a very clever tactic that basically makes CNN fans or whatever go, oh, well, if you reject CNN, I'm going to like CNN more. And it makes Trump fans go, well, we know CNN are lying. We're going to go with what Trump says. I think it just keeps people fighting.
I'll just read this list of questions that you've written here as a possibility as to what Trump is. Is Trump playing a buffoon like Bush so he can get away with stuff? You've said possibly. Is he being used to usher someone else in as a response? Possibly. So they've got a second candidate lined up, I think.
Like Pence or somebody like that.
Right. Is he being used to undermine the office of president in the eyes of the public? Possibly. Is he being used to erode trust in the government and get everyone used to constant, ever-changing lies coming from the government? Possibly. Now, do you think all of those questions that you've asked there point to him being the CIA's choice?
Well, I think that basically he's just a useful idiot. I don't think I think Trump's being used by people behind him because he's the sort of arrogant blowhard that really thinks he can do anything without much effort. I think he just thinks he can walk through this particular job. And I think a lot of people have seized on that and taken advantage of it. Whilst he's spitting fake news, it's been proven that basically in the first 6 months, the office of the White House, Trump himself made 400 provably false statements in the first 6 months. If you count the repetitions of those false statements, it's over 1,000. Right. Okay. But why? Why was Trump chosen? Well, what a lot of people don't look at is the WikiLeaks dump. If you can remember the WikiLeaks dump that happened, right, there were several facts that came out of this that people just, for whatever reason, just didn't seem to follow up. The DNC conspired against the voters to get the People's Choice Bernie Sanders off the card so that Hillary Clinton could be, which is incredibly, it goes against the whole point of having a political affiliation if basically they're going to say, yeah, we've taken that, we've put a pin in it, and we're just going to ignore what you say. They conspired with the media to promote Clinton. They gave her questions in advance. They wanted to make her appear to be a better candidate. If she wasn't a completely terrible person, she might have actually won. Because basically they had a lot of influence with the media and stuff like that. It's just that she's such a despicable representative of a human being that most people were just like, no, I just can't do that. They also conspired. Now here's the really strange thing. The DNC conspired with the media to promote Trump. Mm-hmm. Why? Why did they do that?
Because they thought he was a liability for the other side.
Absolutely, because right at the beginning, he was failing. I know that people, this is again one of the lies that came out. I'm self-financing this campaign, blah, 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 blah. He was dying on his arse right up until the point where basically the DNC started promoting it because they
So you think originally he started out as a joke character, like a rodeo clown?
Absolutely. This is proven by the emails going backwards and forwards with the WikiLeaks. So basically they wanted to promote him because they felt that they could easily beat him because he's an imbecile, that says ridiculous things. This is what they felt. Now this really backfired because the problem was what they did was they basically got Trump, name recognition, at which point Robert Mercer, the billionaire, shifts all of his attention, takes Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, Rebecca Mercer, the Mercer Foundation, and all these various other nodes that are connected to him, removes them from support of Ted Cruz, and then starts basically backing Trump.
Right. So you said before that you thought that these financiers have been involved in Brexit as well.
Well, they are. Yeah, they certainly are with regards
to with the pro-Brexit.
Yeah, they certainly were.
So, do you think then that this nationalism is going to be made to fail and collapse, and that's possibly a new world order tactic?
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. All I know is that this nationalism, as you call it, is what these particular millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires want. And as we're going to discuss later, they're not just individuals that are on their own. They have specific connections to the White House, British military psychological operations, US Marines, Marconi Defence, and the Pentagon.
But you've got other, let's say, oligarchs who are hell-bent on a world power structure.
Possibly.
Are they at odds with the groups that are making the campaigns more nationalistic, do you think?
I'm sure that there's people on both sides that have agendas and stuff like that. It's just that some are better at spinning these things than others. I mean, and one of the things, it's interesting that you're saying about this nationalism, because one of the things that certainly seems to be coming out of this is a push towards extremes of either the left or the right. You're getting, say, the rise of things like the alt-right, or you're getting the rise of social justice warriors on the other side.
Well, we've had the incident last week with the car at the rally, and that's just stoking the whole far right argument, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's there's a lot of that, but if you look at who's pumping millions into promoting the far right, provably, admittedly, Robert Mercer, Steve Bannon, William Reggie.
Is that because they genuinely believe in those principles?
William Reggie wants a white ethno-state. He doesn't want black people in America. Right. Robert Mercer is the same. This attitude is surprisingly prevalent among very, very wealthy people. Now, what's interesting is with the concept of, say, that's interesting what you're saying about the thing, because I am of the opinion that, say, social justice warriors, this shrieking left, this shrieking offended by everything, is actually more favourable to the right wing, because what it does is it basically turns people off. It goes, oh God, for Christ's sake, will you shut up? And they'll go this way. So you could see it as almost like a sort of a Gladio type response. Do you know what I mean? Like in essence, it's like a false flag. And the best way to defeat a cause is to defend it badly, said Nietzsche. So basically, if you're doing that, then what's interesting is both sides of the debate, the far left and the far right, it's just victim culture. It's like a fight to see who's the most oppressed. It's a victim culture echo chamber. Oh, we're oppressed as white males. Oh, we're oppressed as LGBTs. Oh, we're oppressed as a young black man. Oh, we're oppressed as this. There may be an element of truth to it, but basically it is just victim culture, and that's incredibly powerful because victim gives you an excuse. It's not my fault that I've done badly in life. It's all these other people and the system set up against me. And there may well be an element of truth to that. But in a lot of these cases, it just screams inferiority complexes. Right. And I think that very, very wealthy people who've got knowledge and money of psychological operations and power are stoking this division.
So do you think then, Neil, that the lines that are drawn to put people in pigeonholes, identities, and then create politics over those identities, identity politics.
Yeah.
The people don't realise that they're being shoved in whatever group, and then they're being made to hate other groups.
Yes,
deliberately.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of spin that basically is saying, this is the problem with the world, and it just so happens to be the opposite of you. Right. And as we'll come on to later, I think this is far, far more organised than a lot of people will say. I mean, one of the things that is problematical about the internet, okay, you asked me ages ago on a show, is the internet good for conspiracy theories? And I said at the time, the internet's a library, okay? It's just full of books. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. People aren't using the books to read anymore. People are using the books to beat other people's brains in, right? And all that you're getting, YouTube is good and bad, right? What you get is rather than me go and read 10 books, why don't I go and watch one half-an-hour video? Because they've done the reading for me. Do you know what I mean? And then you can spread that. The problem with that is that you're going to an end product and you don't know if they've misrepresented it. You don't know if it's that. And so you get a lot of this where people have like, it's easier to go to a guru and to spread information that somebody else has done rather than you look it up yourself. And it's even harder to actually go into that and go, I disagree.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, the truth is really hard to actually get to, and it's going to cost you some work and some effort, and it has value when you get it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easily available, or doesn't appear to be easily available to everyone, because there's vested interests to hide that truth.
Absolutely,
for certain agendas.
It's a marketing campaign. If you ever I mean, for products, it's Clotilde Rapay. And he basically said, the best marketing campaign is, I want that product. Why? Don't know. The best marketing campaign in propaganda is, I believe that. Have you got any evidence for it? No, but I kind of believe it. There was a story, basically, I won't name names or say what the actual theory was, but I was disagreeing with somebody on this one particular theory, and I say I just don't think that it holds any water. And I said on this, okay, fine, if you think that's real, fine. Can you tell me what crime was committed, by who was the victim, where did this happen, when did it happen, what's your evidence that this actually happened, and then I'll drive you to the police station. And this person turned around to me and said, oh, that's a good point, I don't know the answer to any of that. But there's no smoke without fire. It's like, dude, you're putting the cart before the horse there. Like, do you know what I mean? It's the wish follows, is the father of the thought. And that's incredibly dangerous, to be quite honest.
You've said here that stories with that have an emotional pull.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that. Tell us the importance of that.
Well, that's the thing. If you can appeal to somebody on an emotional level, not a rational one, you've got them. Most successful advertising campaigns are on an emotional level, not a rational one. Most propaganda campaigns are on an emotional level, not a rational one. Like, let's get worried about this particular group of people attacking people or whatever. We'll not look at the facts and the numbers or whatever. We'll just get the emotional response. You can't tell me that that's not bad. No, it's not bad. But well, then that's the argument. Well, can we not look at no time to look at the figures. We've just got to react to the badness. Yeah. And I can think of a dozen stories recently where
basically... talking about the HIV thing the other week.
Well,
that might be an example of one.
There's numerous things where basically, you scare people into a response. There has been certain things where people, do you know what, I don't care if it's true or not, but I bet I'd sooner be safe than sorry, for example. So you're absolutely right with that. It's very tricky.
Okay, so J-Trig is something a bit more sinister, I would say, than what we've been talking about, and
Yeah.
a bit far more kind of underhand and just despicable, really. Start the ball rolling with
Well,
this.
J-Trig was exposed by Edward Snowden, and again, I'm actually with you on this, in as much as I don't trust him that completely, and I don't trust Julian Assange, and I think that essentially what this is very much like you stated before, where this is a head on a pike type thing. Like, if we tell people about this, then, you know, like, J-Trig, it is apparently it's only used against enemies of the state, but we'll see. Like, among the core self-identified purposes of J-Trig are two tactics. One, to inject all sorts of false material onto the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its targets, and two, to use social sciences and other techniques to manipulate online discourse and activism to generate outcomes it considers desirable. And this is a GCHQ project. Okay, to see how extremist these programs are, just consider the tactics they boast of using to achieve those ends. False flag operations, which is posting material to the internet and falsely attributing it to somebody else. Fake victim blog posts, pretending to be the victim of an individual whose reputation they want to destroy, and posting negative or contrary information on various forums. J-Trig has developed covert tools to seed the internet with false information, including the ability to manipulate the result of online polls, artificially inflate page view counts on websites, amplify sanctioned messages on YouTube, and plant false Facebook wall posts for entire countries. According to the study of a group by the UK's Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, the language of J-Trig operations is characterised by the terms discredit, distrust, dissuade, deceive, disrupt, delay, deny, denigrate, and deter. And this is the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, and it feeds false information into the field of the internet. It creates fake gurus. It starts AstroTurf campaigns, which is a fake grassroots charity campaign, and has sock puppet accounts, which is basically people pretending to be who they are. And a lot of these is government-paid trolls who influence chat via ridicule or other tactics. They actually use this in Argentina. They admitted to using this in Argentina to promote self-determination for the Argentinian people. Obviously, Falkland, Malvinas, whatever you want to call it. They promoted pro-British sentiment via propaganda campaigns hidden through social media to reduce the sentiment that the Falklands should go back to Argentina.
When was this then, Neil?
Well, this was very, very recently.
Oh, right, I see. Right, this is
like in the past few years, they actually did that.
Yeah.
And what's really strange is that basically we've got these types of programs, and all of a sudden, quite a lot of people have sort of forgotten 9/11, have forgotten 7/7, forgotten Al Qaeda, forgotten the creation of these groups, and all of a sudden, a lot of people are genuinely concerned that ISIS is a real. And radical Islam is a real thing.
This is what I've found in debates with people who were talking about are certain recent events staged, etc., or what's really going on, that you have to wind these people back to 9/11 and remind, and then they'll say, "Oh well, well I know that was set up,
but these
and
are real.
I know 7/7, but the Muslims are coming to get us." Because this was real and these people died.
Yeah, it's not the intelligence agencies. No, the problem is radical Islam. Apparently, all of a sudden,
a lot of people genuinely believe that, Neil.
I mean, there's always a problem with any type of extremism or radicalisation. It's not to say that it's totally blameless, but we know how intelligence agencies work, and we know how false flags work, and we know how propaganda and the concept of spreading a lot of these sort of nationalist groups. Bizarrely, the rhetoric that they spit out about Islam just so happens to fall directly in line with British and American foreign policy. Mm-hmm. Bizarre, isn't it? Mm. It's almost as if it was set up to promote that. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's just have a look at some of these other J-Trig programs.
So J-Trig, it's been split down into all of these sub-projects, and they're all working in slightly different ways.
Yep.
Just manipulating the internet, essentially, with some very crafty techniques.
It's terrifying if you think about it, really. I mean, Underpass is a J-Trig program that changes the outcome of online polls. And we've discussed before how polls can they can intimate rather than report. Do you know what I mean? If
they can influence your opinion if you see a poll.
If it's
of course.
100% of people think this, then you're less likely to go, well, actually, I'm going to go out in the street and be the one person that says no.
It's normative conformance, I think they call it.
Absolutely, yeah. Badger, which is a mass, it's a mass email swamping. So it's DDoSing basically, where you just you destroy a server by hitting them with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of documents. Right. There's Warpath, which is exactly the same thing, only with SMS, like text messages. It'll mass delivery a text to jam up a device, or alternatively, they can mass send out text or emails that promote a certain story or whatever. Silverlord disrupts videos on Vimeo, YouTube, Skype, anything like that. Miniature Hero disrupts Skype as a whole. So basically, if your Skype call's going down, it could be bad connection, it could be JTrig.
Yeah, just want to interject on that one. Miniature Hero, it's called, disrupts Skype calls. So someone can externally eavesdrop on Skype, and if they want to kind of make it look like the line's gone. Or it's, now, I've noticed this on Radio 4, right? It's maybe something slightly different, where they're interviewing someone who is putting the opposing view, and is doing really well, and suddenly it starts to go, and then they'll say, "Oh, sorry about that, Mr. Such and Such. We seem to have lost that," and you can tell it's a digital call. It's probably Skype.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true, but I just think they've got a button there.
Yeah.
They think, oh, this guy's beginning to win the argument. Right, well,
they have an admitted button. They have an admitted button. It's called Miniature Hero. Spring Bishop finds private photographs on social media, presumably for blackmail purposes.
Yeah.
Angry Pirate can disable an online social media account or an email account, make it completely inoperable.
Right.
Gateway, that increases traffic to a specific website. Gestator.
Right, which, just to interject again, Neil, and now that could cause a problem. Like, I put a document on my website that was larger than I'd intended to, and encouraged people to download it. Zumph, my website went because I went straight over the bandwidth. So that internet service providers or hosting companies will take your website down if you go over a bandwidth. So falsely increasing the traffic is a way of getting rid of a...
Well, it can work in either way. It can direct people towards it because that's a favourable site, or it can, as you say, destroy the site by basically overloading it and making it fall out of its parameters. Gestator is a program that promotes a certain message or trope or story or theory. That's the one where basically they'll push false stories through the internet. Changeling, now this is a really scary one. Changeling sends emails from your account that are indeterminable. So if they wanted to discredit you, they could basically plant child porn on your computer remotely, send that via an email, and you're all of a sudden on the sex offenders register.
Right.
And that's absolutely 100% admitted. And the JTrig is one program. JTrig, now all of those are part of JTrig, which is a GCHQ type operation. It was GCHQ operation. There are lots of similar programs that exist via US intelligence.
Just to go back, Gestator promotes a certain message, trope, story, theory. Flat Earth?
Could be. Could be. Okay. And there's a few. I mean,
Not going to go into that.
No, let's not. Let's not open that can of worms. But there's a few theories, tropes, whatever, that are becoming very popular. And I'm certainly of the opinion of I'll put it this way, okay? Any theory where you know what's happened before you've looked at the evidence is crap. And I think there's a lot of promotion of that. This is this. Prove it. Not let's find out what happened. Saying that this is what happened, okay, and then just looking for evidence to support your case. And I think a lot of that comes off the back of manipulation via this type of program.
So there's other programs other than JTrig, just...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, in 2008, the Pentagon ran a project called Sentient World Simulation, and the point of this was to see how groups of people would react to propaganda fed to them via the medium of social media. Studies in 2011 found numerous examples across social media where sock puppet accounts and were promoting pro-US propaganda. Now, former director of the CIA, David Petraeus, admitted to this and also admitted that there was a thing called Operation Earnest Voice, which created fake grassroots groups in order to astroturf the internet with pro-US interest groups.
Yeah, just one point about how social media as opposed to a flat internet, which is just people looking at websites. The great thing about social media that allows them to do is if they put a program out, any one of these programs, people are immediately giving their responses to that information,
Absolutely.
which they can then hone and develop their techniques because they know how effective they are. Because people, it's a two-way. It's not just someone looking at a website. All those opinions are being fed back.
It's worse than that, Richard.
Right.
We will get onto it.
Okay.
It's far, far worse than that. So, you know, stick with it.
Yeah.
2012, the Department of Homeland Security paid the defence contractor General Dynamics to monitor anti-government sentiment on the internet. In 2014, studies by data analysis groups showed that the most common posters on Reddit, the forum, just so happened to originate from one place, Eglin Air Force Base in America. Eglin is a major hub for Pentagon domestic manipulation programs, and they funded a series of research papers examining how to establish majority views on social media platforms and how to manipulate and influence conversation and opinion and how to manipulate information.
Right.
And this just so happens to be one of the main sources of posts on Reddit.
So that's saying how to establish a majority views. So not how to establish what the majority view is.
No.
How to establish they are going to make the majority view this or that.
Yeah, so the whole point of a lot of these programs is to get the audience on social media and persuade them that this is correct.
Yeah, and then
and furthermore, that they've come up with it themselves.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Now, it was shown at certain times in the document by the institutions that studied this. At certain times, the majority of posters on this particular site or on particular threads were from this one particular military operation. So you'd have, different people who are all basically based at Eglin, pretending to be different people, influencing the direction of this conversation.
And people wonder why I've closed new members to my forum down.
Wow. In 2014, it was shown that Twitter feeds and social media posts were analysed as part of a Department of Defence funded project designed to manipulate the emotions of social media users. Okay? There's a project called SMISC, Social Media and Strategic Communications, and this specifically looks how to influence and change behaviour in social media users. And this is called stochastic terrorism, right? Okay, what you're doing is essentially you're influencing. It's like a hate preacher or an imam or someone like that. You're not committing a crime. You're injecting this information into the sphere that might influence somebody to act on that, and that's called stochastic terrorism.
Right.
And this is, again, it's a very, very powerful. You create essentially tail-chasing stories that go nowhere to distract people from real stories. Very much like in the Manson case, but now we've got it in the space age, so to speak. In 2014, it was shown that the Pentagon has a counter reset button that can kill any viral story dead. You can just
Right. So
memory hold
this
stuff.
might be a story that's true and it's damaging to a government, let's say. Right. And so they can slow down or halt that. You see, this is why I keep an email database for people who watch this program. I encourage people to give me their email address.
Yeah.
And I have software which sends out to every person.
Yeah.
And really, unless you've got some real direct measure, you can't really get in the way of that. You can't stop those people getting those emails, right? That's why I don't use social media to promote, for example, Twitter or Facebook.
Well, I mean, Project Minaret. Project Minaret's an NSA program to intercept and alter emails and texts.
Yeah, okay, but you would know that had been done.
No, you wouldn't,
because they don't know. You could have half a dozen emails on your email list.
Yeah.
That person reports back to you on.
Oh, so, right. Well, if you're expecting a response, but there's nothing to say that they can't create that response themselves.
Yeah, but I would say it's certainly less fallible just using clunky old email, sending it out to so many thousand people, than putting it on Facebook and expecting everyone to see it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
'Cause they can
yeah.
just make sure less people see it than your
I see what your point-
5,000
yeah.
followers or whatever.
Yes, that's certainly a tactic that they could use, yeah.
So, and I think that Facebook, YouTube, etc., are a bit like cattle pens, and they've herded people in there
Yeah.
that can be far better controlled and monitored and manipulated
Yeah.
within those websites than within alternative websites.
Stimulus response thing, okay, if you know that basically like your opinion is X, Y, and Z, then you know that basically your response to a certain social situation is going, you're an avowed racist, right? Okay, you're not going to like it if your boss is black. Or something, and that's really glib and silly, but the point is that basically if you understand how people think about things, you can understand how people would react to things. And people are far, far easier to control if they're in a nice little penned off ideological area where we know you believe this, we know you believe this, and we know you believe this. And when people start to conform to groups, they tend to believe this and this and this, because if you don't believe that, you get kicked out of the group. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to be the one nail that stands out because they catch the hammer.
Yeah.
Right. And as I said earlier, this is basically, people are becoming incredibly reactionary on the internet, very extreme in their views, no grey areas, sort of, you know, and setting people up against one another. Could that be internet propaganda? Could that be, you know, psyops that are directing people's opinions and changing behaviour? And I think it absolutely is.
Right. I've disabled my YouTube comments. That's because I use YouTube as a video host.
Yeah.
That's what YouTube is being used. I used to use a different video host, but they went out of business. So I was forced to use YouTube, right? But I'm using YouTube as a video host.
Yeah,
I'm
not
not
as
using
a
it for a
discussion
discussion.
point. Yeah.
No, because people can go and discuss that on the thousands of other websites on the internet if they want to discuss my material, right? If you don't have someone who can police a forum, because that's what it becomes a forum, you get half a dozen people who are there purely to disrupt. The comments then discredit the video unfairly if you haven't got time to actually manage it.
Yeah, and
that's why the comments are disabled. No other reason. YouTube is being used as a video host. I'm not stopping discussion for anyone who wants to discuss wherever they want to, but don't write graffiti on my garden wall. That's
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get that, because, like, you know, it's a position that I'm sure you don't want to be in, but your hand has been forced, because essentially all you're going to get is trolling. Or
government trolling.
Or sycophancy. And frankly, neither of them are really very helpful, are they? And so yeah, it's a bit of a knotty area, really.
If you're going to have a forum on the internet discussion, right, you have to have an arbiter, and that's a full-time job, right? I'm making these programs, I'm doing research. I haven't got time to sort out petty arguments over nitty.
Nor is it your
argument.
responsibility.
Exactly.
Like, so
you know, that's the reason, folks. No other reason. But as I say, I'm quite happy for people to discuss all the videos on their own web space.
Right.
So you want to come back to the Trump campaign slogan?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, again, it was make America great again. Regardless of what you think about it, it is genius in as much as it's a masterclass in weasel words. It's an incredibly clever marketing phrase, because it means nothing and everything. Let's just start with America. What do you mean by America? Do you mean the American elite? Do you mean everybody? Does that include illegal immigrants? Does it mean America the corporation? Does it mean America the army? Does it mean America the idea? Does it mean America the GDP? What does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything, okay? So we're going to take this and we're going to make it. What does making involve? Does that, you know, you can make a house, you can make a cake, you can make a bed. Is it going to involve a lot of work? Who's going to do it? How will it be done? Will it be easy? Great. What does great actually mean? What does it look like? For who? Great militarily? Great economically? Great intellectually? Will it create things? Will it discover things? Will it be beneficial to itself or other? What does great mean? And again, well, that's genius, because that's a lovely appeal to nostalgia there. It was incredibly clever. It's talking about this past, this indeterminable rose-tinted spectacles that never really existed. So When was America great? Was it great in the 50s? When there was no civil rights? Was it great in the 80s when you were committing genocide against South America? When was it great? And was it universally great? I'm pretty sure there was a lot of people in the 80s that weren't as happy as a lot of other people in the 80s in America.
Just before Kennedy got assassinated.
Yeah, that was it. It was perfect then, apparently. Unless, of course, you were a minority, or or it's any of the other things. But it's meaningless. Basically, the point is that you apply your own meaning to it, and two different people will get two completely different meanings. So in that sense, it has to be respected as being a very, very clever tactic. Now,
and you think Trump has got genealogy links to the global elite, do you?
Oh, totally. He's 19th cousins to the Clintons. Like, he's got an ancestry full of British royalty and aristocracy. Like, he's not a man of the people. I know he sold that I'm a man of the people, blah, blah, blah. He's connected to the mafia via his business dealings. He's got an incredibly dodgy tax reputation. He's got an incredibly dodgy record on not paying working people, small contractors, and basically saying, sue me. Oh, can't afford to sue me? Well, tough, you don't get paid.
Yeah, that's the Duncan Bannatyne business model, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't get to be that wealthy by being nice, do you? Like, he's got an incredibly dodgy record on suing people who says things he doesn't like. He's a bad businessman, right? Okay, that's just a fact. He continuously lost money for investors. He was bailed out of bankruptcy by a Saudi prince, which completely goes against his rhetoric. He's pro-big oil. He's advocated censorship of the media. He's advocated censorship of the internet. His foundation has continuously been accused of corruption, theft, money laundering. He's pro-civilian death in conflict. He's pro-military. He's pro-torture. He borrowed $160 million from George Soros, right, okay? That name is usually enough for people who are on that particular affiliation to go, ah, George Soros. They were co-defendants on the same lawsuit, him and they're friends. They certainly were business partners. Like, he's got an ally in Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch was sticking up for Trump recently. If alarm bells aren't going off, then for Christ's sake, like, he made overtures to 9/11 Truth, basically, because he was courting that InfoWars crowd and stuff like that. And then basically makes kissy faces at Rudy Giuliani and decides that we're going to send 20,000 troops into Afghanistan because that's the cause of 9/11. Well, he's either lying or he was lying before. So, you just don't trust him.
I received emails, I'm not sure if it was just before or just after Trump was elected, essentially begging me to support Trump because he was wanting to investigate 9/11.
Could that be because Robert Mercer set up an entire node of alternative media telling you that that was the case?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was. Also, he's got incredibly close links to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Like, Virginia Roberts, the 15-year-old masseuse that was hired by Jeffrey Epstein, he used as a prostitute for his friends and was photographed with Prince Andrew, after being courted by Ghislaine Maxwell. Which I believe we talked about before. They met at Trump's Mar-a-Lago golf course where she was working as a coat attendant. He's been friends with Ghislaine Maxwell since the late 1990s. In 2002, Donald Trump said this about Jeffrey Epstein in New York Magazine. I've known Jeffrey for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. This is a convicted paedophile. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life.
Sorry, Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted paedophile.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted paedophile.
Yeah, certainly with Trump's business dealings and his tax affairs, there's enough there if people wanted to, or if the right people wanted to get rid of him tomorrow. Yeah. Not to mention possible other stuff that you've just mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, he said he was subpoenaed during Jeffrey Epstein's 2009 child sex case. Right. And Trump basically negotiated with lawyers to give a private deposition to avoid court. Now, this was off the back of the fact that basically it was shown that Trump was making calls from his private home line to the Palm Beach and Malibu properties of Jeffrey Epstein, where dignitaries were filmed with underage children, and that he visited. I mean, I know a lot of people make a lot of thing about Bill Clinton being on the Lolita Express, and I'm absolutely sure that is an accurate portrayal. But Trump was going to the same places with the same people at the same time, doing the same things.
All right.
So,
Do you think that's currently being used to blackmail him to now, or it's something that
I don't
might be
know.
used-
All I'm saying
in other
is
words,
that
is it just these money people who are behind him, or are there more CIA or what?
I don't know,
what-
but all I'm saying is that's indicative that he's not the man of the people for the
Yeah.
people that he's portrayed. That he's actually far closer. I think a lot of these rivalries are actually, nonsense. Because as I said before, he still talks to the New York Times. He still sent Anthony Scaramucci to go and speak to CNN, despite proclaiming them fake news and stuff like that. The CIA is a vested interest in the media, as we know. Like, I just think they're all mates.
I do like it when he points at the BBC journalist at the press conference and just says, "You're fake news," and he goes to someone else.
Well-
I do like that.
Well, yeah, it's a very entertaining tactic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you could see, he's quite a charismatic person. He's a TV star. He's Ronald Reagan plus, isn't he? He's Ronald Reagan that can actually sometimes string a sentence together. Doesn't always make sense, but all the words are there. Like, and yeah, this is. But I would say I'm of the opinion that basically he's just an arrogant person, and that these other people are using him as a tool. I don't think he's a nice person. I think he's a despicable person, and I don't think that he's an honest person or a good person or anything that you would go, yeah, I'm going to give you a tick in this box. But I think that it's actually the people behind him that are the sort of the driving influence.
What you're saying is he's a twat.
Yeah, he's a twat.
Right,
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right, so we'll come on to Australia now.
Yeah,
And,
well, I mean, this is just kind of to sort of like to sort of preface what I've been talking. Well, to sort of add to what I've been talking about, preface what we're going to go on about. All of this is going to tie together and make sense at the end. So there'll be some people who are sat there seething because we're having a go at Trump and stuff like that. But just stick with it. Right, do we think that Western governments would overthrow other governments? Well, yes, pretty much. Iran, Venezuela, Chile.
well, we've tried it in Turkey recently.
Well, we're doing it in the Ukraine at the minute. We set up. I mean, this has actually been admitted now that we set up a right-wing coup in the Ukraine to basically, it's to do with gas pipelines, right? This is what the Russia thing is to do with. Like, Russia's trying to get a gas pipeline through Ukraine. It's also it's been trying to undermine the EU since it murdered the Polish government, right? Okay, because economically, NATO versus Russia is a very, very strong power. If you could break that up and break up the EU and stuff like that, Russia is going to become more dominant in the power industry. It's dead straightforward. The Cold War never ended. It's just moved into economic terms, essentially. That's what it is. But so would we overthrow a government? Yeah, I think we would. In fact, I know we would, because in the 70s, we we performed a coup in Australia. After Edward Gough Whitlam was elected as Prime Minister in 1972, CIA, MI6 and Australia's own intelligence agencies conspired to basically they made it look like there was financial improprieties on the part of this particular Prime Minister, and 4 years into his term they made him actually resign. Now, this is because basically the elected Labour government had threatened to close Pine Gap, which is a missile testing base. They'd also raised wages, increased public services, and they were due to remove God Save the Queen as national anthem. They proposed a withdrawal from Vietnam, and they started to recognise the state of Palestine. And it would appear that basically the CIA, MI6 and the establishment of Australia decided that this wasn't really happening, and so they forged documents to imply, financial improprieties and basically oust this government to the detriment of the Australian people for military psychological purposes. What's really terrifying is that basically, apparently, similar tactics were used in the UK against Harold Wilson's Labour government. Apparently, the British press smeared Wilson as a potential Soviet spy, or at the very least a huge security risk. Now, what's really, again, terrifying is that in 1974 there was a proposed coup d'etat against the Wilson government by MI5. And this was led by Lord Mountbatten. They commandeered Heathrow Airport for a practice run of overthrowing the elected government. And I'll just point out, this is probably a coincidence, but just after Wilson was ousted and Pine Gap was continued, then we got Thatcher and Reagan, who brought about this free trade association, this sort of special relationship, and then we've got all sorts of delightful things like Iran-Contra, the crack epidemic, AIDS, etc., 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 that just happen to serve this particular ideology.
Right.
Now, is this sort of thing going off in America? Is this what's gone off with, say, the Trump campaign? Are these wealthy right-wing people trying to influence a type of coup by creating an alternative media and then trying to influence it? I think it's incredibly possible. Let's just look at Steve Bannon, who's just basically resigned as the aide to the president. Essentially, he's not going to be. I thought that was a quite clever PR tactic, really, because essentially.
So the reason why you're drawing this parallel, Neil, is because you're saying that Trump getting into power was almost like a coup. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I will expand on this later,
Right. Okay.
It's to do with a firm called Cambridge Analytica, and we'll come on to that shortly.
Right.
Steve Bannon, who's the chief executive or former chairman of Breitbart News, now he dubbed this platform, he said this is the platform of the alt-right. This is the media.
Alt-right, A-L-T, right.
This was
the alternative right.
Yeah, it's far right, but for the media age. Essentially, if you call it far right, people will go, oh, it's bad. If you call it alt-right and you have Richard Spencer basically got punched by the left-wing activist. He's sponsored by William Regnery through MPI and various other sort of like right-wing think tanks. He gets millions of dollars for him. William Regnery also published a couple of Trump's books, and during the election he set up automated phone lines in order to promote Trump. Richard Spencer is the person that coined the phrase alt-right. He said, we are alt-right, and it's essentially a media term that basically softens the concept to make it more palatable. But Steve Bannon basically said that Breitbart News, which is the functionary that put out all these fake stories beforehand, he's an ex-US Navy officer. He's described by others as a militarist in love with war. This is not a happy fellow, basically.
Right.
After the military, he went to work on Wall Street for Goldman Sachs because his friend's father was a senior banker there. And later, being sponsored by Robert Mercer, he made a series of apocalyptic right-wing documentaries praising people like Sarah Palin and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's domestic policy was racist, his economic policy was a failure, his foreign policy amounted to genocide and drug importation, and he committed high treason. So anybody that thinks that Ronald Reagan was a sterling example of an American president needs to go and open a book and read about the guy, because everything that they say that he did well, he didn't.
Okay.
Bannon invested $60 million of Goldman Sachs money into IGE. IGE is a computer games company that would basically, if you in games like World of Warcraft, you need to like get gold and stuff like that. But in order to do that, you need to do mundane tasks, which is boring. What they would do is they'd hire gamers to do these mundane tasks and then sell this gold to people for real money.
Okay.
So basically, they're making profit out of nothing.
Right.
It's incredibly clever. The only problem with that is that basically at the time, IGE, the time that Goldman Sachs via Steve Bannon was investing in IGE, it was run by the wanted paedophile Mark Collins Rector and the known paedophile Brock Pierce. If you've seen or you're aware of that documentary, An Open Secret, Brock Pierce and Mark Collins Rector are the two paedophiles that were allegedly connected to Bryan Singer that were involved in that story. And so these are friends of Bannon. Milo Yiannopoulos, by the way, who's also connected to Breitbart, was still not named those paedophiles he saw raping young twinks at Hollywood parties, which is surprisingly similar to the Bryan Singer, Mark Collins Rector, Brock Pierce allegations. yeah, this is very. The third CEO of IGE was also arrested and charged with child sex trafficking, and these are the people that Bannon sort of associates himself with. He's got a history of domestic abuse and refusing to pay child support despite his vast wealth. He was influential in sort of changing the direction of the Tea Party to being more sort of like overtly far right, and was known as the Leni Riefenstahl of the Tea Party. I mean, the whole point of Breitbart, which is basically his Mercer-sponsored Trump promoting media outlet, is to foster an hysterical fear of anything that's not conservative. Like,
So Breitbart.
Yeah.
So is this knowingly connected to Trump, Breitbart?
well, it's owned by Robert Mercer, and Robert Mercer was the main financier of
Right.
the Trump
But
campaign.
does Trump talk about Breitbart?
Yeah,
Right,
and
all right.
InfoWars.
Okay.
They basically have become this whole sort of circular thing where InfoWars will share Breitbart stories, Breitbart will share InfoWars stories, and then Trump will tweet about them.
Right.
And they're incredibly pro-Trump
So-
and pro-Richard Spencer
bef-
and pro-white
Right.
supremacy.
So before the election, then you think that that whoever's backing Trump was trying to mop up the alternative
Media.
community
Yeah.
media, and that's why, say, Infowars
And Drudge Report and-
was kind of nudged to the right a bit to line itself with Trump,
Oh yeah.
and then soak up all of his following
It happened
to get all of these people who wouldn't normally vote to vote,
Yeah, absolutely. By giving them,
giving them a carrot.
we will create the heroes for them to
We're
follow.
going to sort out 9/11.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and then they've just completely forgotten about that. And so anything progressive, anything foreign, anything that conforms to a religion other than Christianity, anyone that's not white and fairly well-to-do is categorised as a threat to the very fabric of Western civilization by Breitbart. It's a nationalist paper, and it tends to err towards white folk. The Charles Martel Society, okay, it's a far-right ideology think tank and charitable organisation that gives money to various right-wing organisations. The National Policy Institute. These are basically, again, promoters of far-right ideology. This is where Richard Spencer came from. Richard Spencer is the person that spawned the phrase alt-right. He believes in a completely white ethno-state. Okay, he wants to deport everybody who's not white, as does William Reginery II. He's an admitted white supremacist who wants all non-whites deported from America. He published Trump's book, and during the election he set up automated phone lines.
But they're never going to bring about a government that's going to do all that, are they?
Do all what?
Well, that's going to make America a purely white state, this white country.
Maybe not,
No,
but this is what these very
just-
wealthy people yearn for as an
All right,
ideal.
All right.
Bannon then basically set up the right-wing think tank GIA. This was financed by Robert Mercer and the Koch brothers, okay? Who are, again, usually you mention those people and it's a, oh my God! Like it's one of those things. And people seem to just sort of like let that slide with this particular administration as if that's not incredibly suspicious. What the GIA allowed investors, it gives tax-deductible donations, and these were basically used to finance Breitbart. This is technically money laundering, and it's completely illegal. And it's basically to hide the fact that these alternative nodes are actually financed by the financial elite.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that in mind, what's Cambridge Analytica? Okay.
You tell me.
Right. Well, Cambridge Analytica started as a company called SCL. SCL is a British-based military psyops organisation. It's connected to the British military and the British military intelligence. It's very cagey about what it does, but it does admit that it's a psychological operations house. Robert Mercer bought into SCL. He basically put a huge amount of money into this military psychological operations company, and they created this firm called Cambridge Analytica, and it's a firm that specialises in data mining and targeting campaign material or propaganda at specific audiences in a manner specifically catered towards the most impact for that specific target group. And basically, they hooked up with Aggregate IQ. Aggregate IQ is a data mining company based in Canada, during the run-up to Brexit, Vote Leave, Leave.eu, the DUP and various other people gave huge amounts of money to Aggregate IQ. The reason that's perfectly okay is because Aggregate IQ is Canadian, so it doesn't fall under the purview of the British or European election cycle. You're not allowed to look at their campaign material, the propaganda, the stuff that they've actually been doing. That's perfectly legal. It's a loophole that allows them to do stuff outside of the UK. Robert Mercer just so happens to own the IP address of Aggregate IQ, so it is a definite node of Cambridge Analytica. But as I say, because they're foreign, it can't really be investigated. Now, SCL used to advertise Aggregate IQ as their Canadian branch, but this was basically removed later, although if you phone their Canadian branch number, you still get through to Aggregate IQ. During the run-up to Brexit, Aggregate IQ was paid to micro-target potential voters via propaganda campaigns via Facebook and social media. What's micro-targeting? Micro-targeting is individualised political messages delivered in the most effective manner to cause the most extreme response. Basically, Aggregate IQ built all the software for Cambridge Analytica. SCL, which is the precursor to Cambridge Analytica, has board members from Marconi Defence Systems, British Military Psychological Operations, the US Marines, and it uses military psyops tactics on domestic populations. It's technically a private domestic company, but it's got all these links to elite weapons manufacturers, psychological operations, the Pentagon, and British military. So essentially what Cambridge Analytica and SCL did is they used psyop tactics on the public in order to influence their political belief and drive their voting tactics.
Right, let me just interrupt you there, Neil. So would this be via Facebook?
It was entirely via Facebook.
Right, so, okay, so those companies have devised some software that will make appear on your Facebook interaction messages, because they know that you're going to vote this way. Well, they know that you like this, that, or the other. So they're going to target you. They're going to target you with some information to sway your vote. Yeah.
What they did was they bought everybody's data from Twitter, Facebook, and other social media, and then they sent algorithms through this.
So let me ask you this question: they've got data that they've derived from social media. Yeah. The next step is to then use that data in order to manipulate those people. Yeah. Now, how can these private companies put their software into Facebook's own back end?
I'll explain. The goal is to capture every single aspect of a voter's information. So what they do is they spread propaganda and plausible lies, fake news, that type of thing, things that will get you riled up. They take millions of...
you often find this on Facebook. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Vote on this, vote on that. They're constantly fishing for information from you all the time on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, basically what they did was they took everyone's information and they examined it. So what pages have you been on? What have you liked? What have you disliked? Let's look at your conversations. Let's see if there's any themes running through this. And they did incredible analysis of this. And
which can be done in software.
Oh yeah, and what they did was they figured out, let's take you, all right? We'll look at Richard Hall's Facebook page. What makes Richard angry? Okay, what makes Richard angry is, I don't know, white pieces of A4 paper. Next day, an advert would appear on your Facebook page saying, because we also know that you don't like traffic wardens. Traffic wardens are flooding the UK with white pieces of paper. Do you want this to stop? Then vote Trump. Vote Brexit.
Yeah. So it's targeting that person. Micro-targeting something that person feels passionate about.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, our candidate will solve your individual problem.
Yeah.
Now, so here's the question, Neil. How can these companies then... How are they allowed to have their software integrated into Facebook software?
They're not allowed to do it. They're allowed to buy the company. Right, okay. Now here's where it gets strange, because during the beginning...
They're allowed to buy which company?
They're not allowed to do this. During the
Right.
election, basically what happened was they're allowed to buy the data,
Yeah.
but they're not allowed to influence it because this is party political influencing, and this has to be
Right.
like
So how are these companies getting that micro targeting advert?
because they
for
did
want
it
of a
through Canada, because they did it through aggregate IQ,
Right.
which means that it can't be investigated. Now, during the beginning
Right,
of both the campaigns,
just interrupt you again. So aggregate IQ then,
Yeah.
they've got some connection with Facebook then, have they?
no, aggregate IQ is the Canadian data portion of this data mining company, Cambridge Analytica.
Right.
During the beginning of the campaign, Cambridge Analytica and their chairman and various people were really, really proud that they were on part of the Leave Brexit campaign.
Right.
They says if this is successful, we're going to apply the same tactics to getting Donald Trump elected. They later admitted that they used micro-targeting, fake news, etc., 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 as a precursor to get Donald Trump into office.
Right.
Now, it came out during the campaign that this is illegal because if you're paying this company, you have to declare it, and there's only so much money you're allowed to put into political campaigns, and it's totally illegal. So all of a sudden, Cambridge Analytica turned around and says, oh yeah, no, we did it all for free. In fact, we didn't do anything. In fact, actually, the only reason we did it is because basically Nigel Farage is keen on Brexit, and Robert Mercer's his friend. There's a current, basically, this was exposed in The Observer, and Cambridge Analytica says, well, no, that's completely not true, and we're going to sue you. And The Observer turned around and says, fine, we've got all the quotes. You admitted that you were involved. You can't sue us now. For some reason, nobody's looked into this highly illegal manipulation.
So is there an interface then between Facebook and aggregate IQ?
No, they just bought all your data.
Yeah. Okay. So they've got all the. So Facebook give them a load of data, which enables them to figure out how everyone ticks who's
Yeah.
on Facebook. They know what they know what message that person would love to see in order to influence their vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that company then get Facebook to put that message on that individual
You just
person's?
set up a SOC account and just send them a message.
All right.
Yeah.
So they set up. So it involves setting up a whole load of fake Facebook
Oh yeah,
accounts.
yeah.
Right. All right. All right. I
Or just
understand
as
that.
we were talking about earlier, you put that information out, and somebody spreads it, and somebody spreads
Right,
it, and somebody spreads it. If you're friends with somebody on Facebook, the likelihood is there's 2 or 3 people at least on there that have very
Right.
similar ideas.
You've-
So that's
yeah.
a block campaign. that
Right.
you
You've
can
answered the question there. They have a whole load of SOC accounts
yeah.
that they own,
Yeah, absolutely.
and there could be thousands of accounts.
It's connected to also to Palantir, which is Peter Tile's data mining corporation. That's incredibly is part of this sort of increasing panopticon of like total non-privacy. All your information is utilised and is used against you. And as I say, Cambridge Analytica now works directly with the Pentagon.
Do you think that data includes the private messages?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, everything. There is no privacy
So
on the internet.
a Canadian company
Yep.
bought from Facebook
Yep,
a whole load of data
yep,
that have been mined from Facebook,
Yep.
and it includes private messages, say between me and you or anyone. Really?
yeah. They bought this data and they specifically analysed it to see what makes you angry, and then they found out what makes you angry, and they utilised that to manipulate you into voting a particular way. Nigel Farage, Robert Mercer, Steve Bannon have been friends and colleagues since 2002. Breitbart set up its office in the UK to promote and support UKIP, which is Nigel Farage's thing. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that basically you voted in the wrong way. It just means, or that you didn't have a good reason for it. It just means that if you voted for Trump or for Brexit, that these millionaires and billionaires that have connections to military psychological operations, the Pentagon, the White House, US military and British military just so happen to want you to vote that way.
Just to interject again, Neil, I have been sent a book by a chap who was at one of my lectures. He's written a book. I forget the name of it. I can put it on the screen. But the central theme in there is that Brexit was engineered in order for some very large business interests to make a whole load of money.
Yep, probably. I said this before. Again, like I have no strong opinion on whether it's good or bad. Voting in Brexit was like being a child and choosing a boarding school. Doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you decide. You're going to get screwed by an older, richer person. So that's what it is. Like the DUP gave money to Cambridge Analytica they're doing quite well now, aren't they? Strange, and they have a similar hideous right-wing ideology.
I described it as deciding which dog turd you're going to stand in.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's another way. In the 2050 PR Week, Cambridge Analytica Director of Programme Development Brittany Casier stated, Cambridge Analytica only started working with Leave EU more recently. The firm's teams of data scientists and analysts would be enabling targeting messaging by understanding why certain things worry people. Cambridge Analytica, Leave EU confirmed that Cambridge Analytica were helping them map the British electorate. Andy Wigmore explained, a Facebook like was the most potent weapon because using artificial intelligence as we did tells you all sorts of things about that individual and how to convince them with what sort of advert. And you know that there would be other people in their network who liked what they liked, so it could spread. The computer never stops learning and it never stops monitoring. When he was told that was creepy, Andy Wigmore said, yeah, no it is. That's why I'm not on Facebook.
Right. So someone's got a fear of worms and they make that known on Facebook, and then sometime later they get a message saying that Trump's going to sort out all the worms.
In a very, very simple way, So basically, people were manipulated by billionaires connected to UK and US military, and they used fear and psyop tactics by mining your data and social media posts through like complete surveillance in order to manipulate your feelings. That's
when you take up a Facebook account, you create it. There's nothing in there that says we have a duty to not pass on your data to a third party.
That's how they make money. That's what Facebook is. Facebook is a data mining. I mean, Peter Thiel, who runs Palantir, was the initial financer of Facebook.
But there's nothing in that agreement when you sign up to Facebook to say that the data will stay within Facebook.
On the contrary, it's the opposite as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
So when you post private messages on Facebook, folks, Facebook have every right to give it to whoever they want or sell it to whoever they want to for money for political purposes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking about the JTRIG and GCHQ and so this is
private.
This is
it's not. This isn't government spying.
Campaigning.
This isn't government spying. It's private companies doing this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I believe that they have actually got connections to the government.
Yeah.
But ostensibly, this is perfectly above board, perfectly legal, and not at all sinister. After the success of Brexit, Cambridge Analytica, basically Robert Mercer said that Brexit was a test to see if the mood was right to get somebody like Trump in, which again leads to my concept that there's a coup of some description going on, whereby basically these people who have a certain ideology want to get their position.
So they used the same tactics to make Brexit win as they did to get Trump in then?
Yeah. After Brexit, they basically decided that they would use exact. And in America, they admitted doing it. In England, they admitted it and then later denied it. Okay. In America, they admitted that was what was the point. Data mining, micro-targeting, manipulation.
So what about, if we just stay on Brexit a second, what about the viewpoint that joining Europe is a step towards a world government and that the most powerful people on the planet are marching the UK and other countries in Europe to a world government? So surely they would be using those techniques to get us into Europe.
Maybe they would. I don't know. Or say, I don't know. I'm not saying that you made the wrong vote. I'm not saying you made the right vote. All I'm saying is a very specific class of very wealthy people with very specific connections to US military industrial complexes, the Pentagon and British psychological operations wanted you to vote that way.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a level of sophistication so much higher than the guy in the street who used to stop you and say, "Will you be voting Conservative, sir? What is the issue that upsets you the most? Do you want this? That's how they used to do it, isn't it?
It's hidden, it's underhanded. That's the frightening part.
And it could potentially have information that you would never dream of even sharing to anyone, isn't it?
Totally, absolutely, totally. I mean, this is totally the problem with it. But this is not the first time that something like this has happened as well, right? Okay, it's slightly different, but this is what I was trying to explain. If they will do this in Australia, very wealthy people have got agendas, and they'll do it in Europe, and they'll do it in America, and they'll do it in England as well. And again, it's not to criticise anyone that's voting in a particular way. It's just curious that these people wanted you to vote in that way.
I mean, another point perhaps to make, Neil, is that there's only a certain percentage of people that are on Facebook. A lot of people who are, say, on Facebook, they might use it once a month. They're not regular users. So this has been done only using a section of the population.
Don't think they're on Twitter, you don't think they're on 4chan, you don't think they're on Reddit, don't think they're on 8chan. Okay, and with some of those, 4chan, for example, you preach to the converted. It takes a very small amount to like get somebody in the perfect way. We've just found out about this, okay? Like, because they admitted it in America and got caught out in England. So, yeah, I'm sure you're absolutely right. It's only very, that's not the broadest spectrum.
Generally, you're younger voter, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. But, get them young.
Yeah.
Indoctrinate them, and it's very difficult to change their views. But as I say, this isn't the first time that underhanded tactics. This is very slightly different. But I'd just like to talk a little bit about LulzSec or AntiSec and the FBI and Stratfor. Stratfor is it's a private. Sort of like it's like a sort of private CIA almost. It's a defence contractor that is technically a private company, but it has interactions with American government.
Probably full of geeks.
No? I don't. Well, yeah, but like some dangerous ones as well. Like if the CIA is full of geeks, it's a similar type of thing. Now, basically, there was this hacker collective that was an offshoot of Anonymous. Obviously, we know Anonymous, and this was called LulzSec. Lulz as in laugh out louds. LulzSec, it was a hacker collective, and it was an offshoot of Anonymous. They were so good that LulzSec actually hacked and shut down the CIA's website.
Yeah,
at one point.
and just to make a point, because we spoke about Assange and about how Assange was a very proficient hacker and he had all of these charges against him. And it's my belief that he was then recruited at some point because he was useful to them. And I think that seems to be what happens to a lot of the good hackers. They will then work for, because I think there was a chap named, I forget his name, who went to work for DARPA, who was a hacker. So anyone who's going to be a danger to whatever, a hacker, they're going to get recruited. They are going to get recruited and offered that to work for.
It's certainly one way. I mean, there's obviously been instances where hackers used to do that. They used to basically find back doors and then tell the company who found this back door, pay me and I'll show you how to close it up. Or whatever. One of the members of LulzSec was this very prominent hacker by the name of Sabu, or Sabu, S-A-B-U. Now, he was one of the very first people to suggest and promote Occupy Wall Street. He was also involved alongside a very famous hacker called Jeremy Hammond in the hacking of Stratfor. Now, Stratfor, as I said, is a private intelligence contractor with shady links to the US government. Bizarrely, the editor-in-chief at InfoWars was an intern at Stratfor for a year and a half. And InfoWars started in exactly the same town as Stratfor at exactly the same time. And Alex Jones has been accused, I don't know if that's true, but Alex Jones has been accused of being connected to Stratfor. Just before Occupy Wall Street, Sabu formed another, even more hardcore hacker group, which was called AntiSec. And via this organisation, Sabu was basically training people to hack large corporations. And on Christmas 2011, AntiSec released a load of emails that were hacked from Stratfor. Stratfor is like a non-governmental CIA. They do private investigation work for military contractors and government and organisations. One of the things that AntiSec did was they stole credit card numbers from Stratfor's clients and actually gave $700,000 away to charity. Like, now this was actually, again, had to be returned, but it's quite Robin Hood-esque, isn't it? Now, the Stratfor emails revealed that Goldman Sachs and Stratfor were looking at doing a possible insider trading scheme, which would have been illegal. Stratfor was attempting to smear a journalist by promoting the false idea that they were an Al-Qaeda operative. The Bank of America had employed techniques to spy on and collect data about Occupy Wall Street activists. And Stratfor was monitoring and reporting on dissent against the Dow Chemical Company, particularly due to their response to the Bhopal chemical explosion that killed thousands 25 years ago. So, like, even 25 years afterwards, they're monitoring people to see anti-sentiment against major blue chip corporations. One of the things that the emails exposed was that trapwire is actually used in far more cities and venues than had been previously admitted. Trapwire is yet another of these Palantir type panopticon data mining things. It's involved in CCTV. If you've ever seen that film A Scanner Darkly, at the beginning where he's walking along and the CCTV camera picks him up and they do a facial recognition and they get his entire history up and his criminal record and, you know, all aspects of his life that's been data mined from everything else, and then you can immediately tell that, you know, it's a tracking device and stuff like that. That's what trapwire is. Trapwire is basically it's in many American cities, despite the fact that they actually deny that it is. Now, there was only one problem with this whole scenario, is that during the entire time that this went on, Sabu was an FBI informant. Okay, so Sabu was arrested on June the 7th, 2011. The following day, on June the 8th, he turned FBI informant. Antisec was formed on June the 19th. So the FBI formed Antisec and they immediately started training other hackers to hack large corporations and encouraging them to hack large corporations. Then in September, Sabu is instrumental in promoting Occupy Wall Street, which means that the FBI were instrumental in promoting Occupy Wall Street.
And was that done via Facebook to promote it?
It was done by Twitter.
Right.
There was also an advert in a magazine called Adbusters as well.
Right. Because I know that in the UK, the Occupy movements were started on Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of it was done
With social media, absolutely.
Yeah, social media.
Because,
social media.
Well, it was, I think originally it was kind of supposed to be connected to Anonymous, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what's interesting is that during the Occupy Wall Street, Anonymous were saying they were going to hack all these banks and shut down Wall Street.
Right.
Sabu intervened, told them to stop it.
Right. So now I do know one or two people who were involved in the Occupy movement in the UK, and I would say that those people were genuine people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who were wanting to change the banking system and get rid of corruption. And
this is not a
really good
criticism
motives.
of those people, just like it's not a criticism of voters of Brexit or Donald Trump. It's just.
But you think that that the whole concept and the idea came from the intelligence agencies or the FBI for Occupy. So it was just a little test.
It would appear so.
That will be quite annoying news to some people who were involved and committed months of their lives living on the street thinking that they were doing something.
Well, again, then Antisec also hacked Stratfor. So the FBI essentially hacked Stratfor. This led to the arrest of Jeremy Hammond and the arrest of various other people.
So let's just look at the bigger picture then. Why would American intelligence and possibly British intelligence kind of set up these protest movements?
See who's going to go for it. See who's going to go along with it. It's another data mining program.
Right.
And
you think that they're maybe practicing their responses, maybe how to respond to
entirely possible. Like, I'll guarantee that basically every single person that was at Occupy, at any of the occupiers, you've been photographed and your details are on the line or on a file somewhere. You know, it could be just as simple and straightforward as in the event of a popular uprising, whose door do we need to kick in first? Or something like that. You just don't know. Again, I'm not sure of the motivation. Specifically, I don't know how Mercer and Farage and people like that are going to make money from Brexit. I mean, they're hedge fund managers, so you know they make money from chaos. I don't understand why William Regenery exactly wants a white ethno-state in America, but they do, and they're desperately trying to sort of promote this. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I just know that I'm very troubled by the amount of underhanded manipulation that's gone into all of these things, and specifically because many people, as you say, have really gone for this wholeheartedly. And this is not a criticism of those people, right? Okay, this is not a criticism of their cause or their opinions or anything like that. This is just rich men get really rich in chaos,
right,
and then they're creating chaos.
Right. So do you think there's some interplay between, let's call it the business world, for want of a better word, these multi-billionaires who are trying to influence the outcomes of the election and Brexit, because they can, because they're so rich and they're crafty, right? Do you think there's a link between them and the security services?
Probably,
Are they doing each other favours?
I would imagine so, because as I say,
the security services might suggest this to one of these oligarchs. You do that, we scratch your back. That's,
absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of criticism that's laid out against George Soros. Some of it is warranted, some of it is slightly thin. Like, he's given money to, say, Tides, which is a charitable organisation that was then distributed, and certain charities in Ferguson, certain Occupy Adbusters for one, where the Occupy Wall Street thing was paid for via a Tides thing. It's not a direct line in the same way that Mercer is, but what is true is that George Soros, for example, is connected to the Carlyle Group, and he was instrumental in promoting the similar types of things during the intervention into the former Yugoslavia. Like, he was spreading sort of like pro-US or anti-whatever sentiment via his sort of civic causes and stuff like that.
But these are the players who are really manipulating the outcomes of things like this.
Absolutely.
And we're led to believe it's Boris Johnson leading the campaign for this or that, or whoever. They're just minions and pawns, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're people that have positioned themselves to make a lot of money, basically. You know, perhaps they believe in that actual cause. Okay, I don't actually think they do. I think it's a sales pitch. But yeah, that's certainly the case. There's very, very wealthy people connected to these institutions, and they, for whatever reason, are manipulating people to act and react in a particular way. That is ultimately going to be beneficial to them, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Right. And so where does that leave, let's say, the UK Parliament, like Jeremy Corbyn or Tim Farron, although he's not there anymore, and I think I know why. Let's say Jeremy Corbyn got elected.
Yeah.
Right. This is all still there, isn't it? This is all of this sort of manipulation behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean,
how can you see any of this being sort of gotten rid of, or this sort of control using nefarious methods?
No, and if the wrong person gets in, like in Australia, they'll get him out.
Yeah.
That's the terrifying thing. Like, there's so much manipulation going on.
Yeah.
And what they're doing at the minute is they're being very, very clever because of the mechanisms of social media and stuff like that, making people think that they've come to these realizations on their own.
I'm not trying to scare you out there, but you just think, including your private communications with Facebook and Twitter and all the others, you just think of all the information that you have output into that computer screen about your life.
Yeah, anything you do on the internet and on your phone is public.
And your phone.
Yeah, it's public.
Yeah. And someone can buy that information.
Yeah, and they do, and then they use it against you.
Right. Okay. All right, then, Neil. Is there anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think we've we've done enough.
Right. Okay. Remember, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.